Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 7th, 2023 meeting of the Murfreesboro Planning Commission. We'll call the meeting to order, and we do have a quorum present tonight. Our first item of business is to approve the minutes of the May 17th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. Everybody's had a chance to review those prior to the meeting, so don't have any changes or corrections. We'll be ready for a motion.
If there are none, I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearings tonight. We have two. The first item is a mandatory referral to consider the abandonment of a portion of a public utility easement and a portion of Asher's Fork Drive public right-of-way. Huddleston Steel Engineering, Inc. is the applicant. Mr. Aguilera, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Chair Jones, and thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. The first item in our agenda tonight is a mandatory referral application to abandon a public utility easement and a portion of a public right-of-way. The Planning Commission is being asked tonight to consider the abandonment of a segment of Asher's Fork Drive public right-of-way and a segment of a public utility easement adjacent to the subject right-of-way. The above-mentioned requests for the abandonment are depicted on the attached exhibit that is shown on screen here. That has been prepared by Huddleston Steel Engineering, and they have shaded in the colors for the specific request for this application. In August of 2020, a final plat was submitted and approved by Planning Commission for the Waits Creek Crossing subdivision, Section 1, Phase 1A, that dedicated the public right-of-way of Asher's Fork Drive and a 10-foot public utility easement. This was discussed in the May 17th Planning Commission, where we discussed it further that as it was in the 2020 plat, Asher's Fork was dedicated several blocks to the east of the lots in Phase 1A in order to provide road frontage for the common area that was part of that section containing the detention pond for that development. Recently, it was discovered that the Asher's Fork Drive right-of-way that was recorded with this plat was greater than what was ultimately needed for the eastern terminus of that street. In 2023 of April, final plats for Section 2 were recorded, and it was determined that the excess right-of-way conflicts with the development of the two lots in Section 2. The recording of these two lots cannot move forward until such a time as the excess right-of-way is abandoned. Huddleston Steel Engineering, on behalf of O'Brien Lloyd Venture, is requesting to abandon the excess portion of Asher's Fork right-of-way, as well as the portion of the 10-foot public utility easement, in order to, again, be able to plat those two outstanding lots and be able to develop those two lots. For the request to abandon the easement and public right-of-way, the Planning Department has reached out to the City Departments for comment regarding the impact of the abandoning of a portion of Asher's Fork and the public utility easement. No objections were received. However, Murfreesboro Water Resource Department does have an existing sewer main within the abandonment area and will therefore require a 30-foot sanitary sewer easement to be retained and centered over the existing main prior to the requested abandonment. For further review of the city's department's responses, a memo has been included in your package for review of the utilities and department's responses. The Planning Commission will need to conduct a public hearing and then discuss this application to make a recommendation to City Council. Staff recommends that the approval be made subject to the following conditions in order to facilitate the abandonment process. These five conditions include the applicant, one, that the applicant must provide the city legal department all the necessary documentation, including any needed legal descriptions and exhibits required to prepare and record the legal instrument. Condition number 2, that the abandonment shall be subject to the final approval of the legal documents prepared by the city attorney. And the third condition, that the applicant will be responsible for recording the documents, including paying any recording fees. And the fourth condition, that the utility and drainage easements shall be recorded as necessary to accommodate any existing or proposed utility and or drainage infrastructure. And the fifth condition, that the final plat dedicating the required easements and combining the abandoned right-of-way with the adjacent property shall be recorded simultaneously with the quitclaim deed. The plat must also provide the required road frontage for the existing common area to the north of Asher's Fork Drive. I'm here available for any questions that you may have.
Joel, the two lots that you're talking about that are asking, that I guess that they would be able to now build on because of this abandonment, were they part of the approved plan plat, or are these two new lots?
These lots, if I remember correctly from the older plat that was submitted in 2020, that was talked about as reserved for future development. And so it was known then, I think it was just excess that was recorded during that plat. So it was known that those were going to be lots. I think at that time it was just depicted as reserved for future development. I don't have the plat here with me. I'm just recalling from memory, though. If that answers your question, sir.
So can you tell us where these two outlots are going? Is it go back to that, right there?
Yeah, yes, sir,
Okay.
in this exhibit. So this was all this was all, if I remember correctly, from the 2020 plat. This was all this was all denoted as reserved for future development. And so when the following plat came in 2023, it was realized that, again, that excess right-of-way was dedicated with the previous plat.
Okay.
And the lots that we're looking at that are right beside the Behringer Lane wording right there that are just to the south of your little pointer, those lots, were they on the original plat?
So this map has been updated to reflect that new plat that was recently recorded. So that's why we're seeing that now. So those lots have now been depicted correctly on our GIS systems. So before, if we use the previous version, those additional lots to the south of this area were not shown because, again, it was all reserved for future development. But now that the plat has been recorded, those lots are now showing on our GIS maps.
Okay.
So they will need to go back and record a new plat to, again,
To get the two lots?
to get the two ones.
Okay, okay. Any other questions before we open the public hearing? Okay, thank you, Mr. Aguilera. All right, we will open the public hearing for this item. We'll ask anybody to come forward that would like to speak regarding this. You would come forward to the podium, state your name and your address, and then you will ask all your questions, make all your comments during your 3 minutes. We'll make note of any questions you have, and at the end of the public hearing, we'll do our best to answer those questions.
Okay.
So,
My name is Tim Seneker. I live at 130 Spence Creek Lane, which is the property behind or adjacent to this plat they're talking about. My first question is, how many homes would go on those two plats?
and if you'll just go ahead
Yeah.
and make note,
We'll
take
answer all the questions at
all
the end.
questions.
Okay. And number two, during the first phase of development, we had excessive continuous flooding that was pretty extreme. I've got some pictures here I'd like to give to the Planning Commission for y'all's review before you make, so that I can I give that to you now?
Yes.
I've got dates on the papers when these were taken and to show you how long this water stood on our property. When we went to the developer about the flooding, we were told that this was a city issue. We'd have to contact the city for resolution, and we did not, because this problem had never occurred prior to this new construction. Our concern is we're going to have more flooding and maybe continual flooding on a new section of our property in the back, so that's why I'm here. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Seneker, when you stated you lived on the adjacent, did you state your address too? I'm sorry.
You did.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming. Anybody else here to speak on this item? Okay, if not, we'll close the public hearing for this item. And Mr. Aguilera, you want to help us? I would take it these are going to be two lots. We'll have two homes potentially on these. Is it RS-15?
No, ma'am, this is zoned RS. Don't have that information in front of me. I believe the zoning for this property is, I'm gonna pull this up in our GIS. To answer the gentleman's question, though, for the first of the homes, I can't remember what the plat, how many were recorded with section 2, this new section. I can't speak to that, but I know for the drainage concerns, that is a valid request that we can continue to work on with the engineering department. We can see with that in the memo that was included with this package, they did respond to this request, and they said the following: the request to abandon right-of-way should be made subject to the recording and subdivision of the subdivision plat that will accommodate any existing or proposed drainage and utilities, has right-of-way or has separate easements if needed to accommodate the facilities outside the proposed right-of-way. I can't speak to too much. I did not handle the recording of this plat, but I can speak that it is an ongoing process with the subdivision to get all the required drainage and infrastructure in place to accommodate that. So the gentleman's concern we can handle, and we will discuss that further with the city engineer.
Okay. And the pictures he provided tonight, and is that sufficient, or would he need to contact the?
Yes, I would. So I will discuss that with the gentleman after this meeting, and then we will coordinate with Michelle Emerson and other personnel from the engineering department to see what those concerns are and to address what that is and what the future plans of the subdivision have. Because I didn't work on this, but I know for a fact after doing this and processing this mandatory further, there is still ongoing discussions regarding drainage and the infrastructure that is planned for this subdivision.
Okay.
Yeah, I just like to make the comment that, we tell people all the time that we're not supposed to worsen the problem when we approve these plats and approve the engineering plans and that sort of thing. And that's the last thing that we want. If we've got proof that it happened and then the developer doesn't want to take action, then we as a city, again, we're making that assurance when we approve these plats, then we need to act upon it.
Can we hold on voting this until we get some assurance from the builder or the developer that this is going to be taken care of?
What's the chairwoman say?
Yeah, there's nothing that says we can defer.
Yeah, we can, if you all make that decision, we can definitely get a better response on that and then come back with the further information on that.
How's
My
the clock
understanding
work?
that this flooding did not occur at all before this development.
No, before that development was there, it held water. I lived on that side of town at the time. Before any of those houses were there, the water would get that deep.
But it just didn't get that deep on his property.
Right.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
would say that development helps
Yeah,
drainage
right.
versus
Yeah.
either continuing or making it worse.
In my personal opinion, I would like to defer this until we can get a resolution from the developer on handling this flood issue, since there's no action being done in regards to that.
Yeah. So this is what was also provided by Huddleston Steel Engineering. You can see on your screen, this is what they provided for that exhibit. If further information is needed to present to the Planning Commission on how that issue is being handled and whether the sufficient infrastructure is in place, we can definitely produce that information from the developer and from the engineering team.
I agree. I'd like to wrap my head around this one a little bit more because I'm looking on the GIS and having a hard time getting my bearings.
It's
Yeah,
right at where Case Lane goes between 99 and
Oh,
Veteran,
that's where I just was. Okay.
between Two Rivers.
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion, we defer until we have an action plan. And that action plan can be not only communicated with the developer, but also communicated with Mr. Seneca.
And I agree, I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we'll defer that for tonight.
Sir, can I ask, were you 130? Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So our next item, item B, is a mandatory referral to consider the abandonment of an approximately 815-foot segment of an alley right-of-way located west of Kings Highway. The City of Murfreesboro Planning Department is the applicant. Good evening, Mr. Barbier.
Good evening, Chair Jones and the members of the Murfreesboro Planning Commission. The next item on your agenda tonight is a mandatory referral request for an 815-foot segment of public right-of-way or alleyway. It's located west of Kings Highway. It's the green section that you can see on the cover page map in front of you. Little history, the Westview Church of Christ, that's located right about where my cursor is, they brought a project to us to rework their parking lot earlier this year, And during the research and due diligence phase of that development, it was discovered that the city still retained a 815-foot section of alleyway spanning this entire block and a small portion of the adjacent block to the southeast. Knowing that the alleyway appeared to be blocked by privately owned structures, did not appear to be fully improved, staff wanted to take a study and look at this area and see if it's something that the city needed to retain or if it could be abandoned. We've reached out to other departments as well as utility agencies to determine if this alleyway is needed or would impact delivery of services or infrastructure. I've included a memorandum in your staff reports that indicates those responses. There were no conflicts with abandoning the right-of-way from any of those agencies or departments, and staff would recommend abandonment of this right-of-way based on 2 conditions. First condition would be that the abutting property owner desiring to have adjacent alley right-of-way quitclaim to them shall provide to the city legal department legal descriptions and exhibits as needed in order to draft a quitclaim deed. Each property owner wishing to receive such quitclaim deed shall be responsible for the recording of same, including the payment of the recording fee. The second recommendation is that each property owner receiving abandoned right-of-way shall also be responsible for submitting a subdivision plat incorporating the abandoned right-of-way into their respective parcel or lot at such time as the owner or their successor redevelops such property. Each plat should be recorded simultaneously with the recording of the quitclaim deed if provided. In addition to these 2 recommendations, we do propose that the right-of-way is divided along the center line and then abandoned to each adjacent property owner on each side of that line. The Planning Commission would need to hold a public hearing tonight for any comments or discussion about it, and then discuss any matters relevant to it amongst themselves after the public hearing. A recommendation for the City Council to consider will also be needed at the end of the item.
And so can I ask, so are you saying that the property owners of each of these adjoining lots would need to submit the plats to abandon these easements?
No, I believe the way it's set up is that they would, upon redevelopment of that lot, they would need to provide a plat in order to incorporate that area. If it remains the same as it stands today, they would not need to provide a plat.
So,
That just kind of leaves it in no man's land.
Well, I think what the legal department has discussed, this alley is actually platted on an old subdivision. So if Planning Commission recommends the abandonment and City Council actually affects the abandonment, I believe our plan is to record the ordinance abandonment that references the book and page for that plat, and that will affect the legal abandonment, so that they'll own the property from that point. But then to Mr. Barbie's point, if they redevelop the property in the future, then at that point a replat would be appropriate to show the current boundaries of the lots.
But if they sell it, they're going to be selling just the original lot, and the abandoned easement will just still be there behind them.
Well, once we record the abandonment ordinance, then subsequent title searches should pick those up.
But they're not going to automatically record a new plat.
Correct.
That expense wouldn't be normal in just a lot sale.
Correct. If it's just a sale of the existing residence that's on there, then no replat would be necessary. It'd just be up to the seller and their closing agent to make sure that the proper chain of title is noted for both the lot and the abandonment.
Okay.
I mean,
Kinda
we
messy.
got 2 title folks up here, they probably, but my question is, am I understanding, if I was an existing property owner I really don't have to do anything, and there's no cost to me associated with this on the front end. All of it's on the back end if I choose to sell, correct?
Choose to develop.
You don't
Or
even
choose to
have
develop, okay, yeah.
It's just a normal real estate transaction, the abandoned easement, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not gonna give any attorney advice. But listening to Roman, the abandoned easement just takes care of itself because they're gonna file an abandonment of the easement. So when Jamie would do a title search for that property, it would show that that easement has been abandoned.
I see.
It's still going to be back there just like it is. Right now, it's not an abandoned easement and it's back there.
Right.
Then it's going to be an abandoned easement back there. It's still not part of their property. If they want it to be part of their property, they'd have to replat it.
So who's responsible for maintaining the,
Well, the abandoned right-of-way will become their property. It just won't be, and it'll show up on GIS as being their property once it's abandoned. It just won't be there as a legal lot of record on a plat until it's redeveloped. But if the abandonment passes, then that land would become each lot owner's up to the center line. They'd be responsible for paying taxes and upkeep and all the usual stuff, which by all appearances they've been doing for the last 50 years.
Didn't we do a small section of this right-of-way last year?
That's what I was thinking too.
Does this look really familiar to you?
Up closer to Kings Highway.
Yeah, we've done, I think, a section probably, I think it was closer to the Kings Highway and Old Salem Road.
And it was a similar situation where there was intent that this would be used, and it never was, and I think the property owner came and said, well, I've been mowing it, can I just have it?
So in that situation, what we did is we actually quitclaim deeded and recorded to each of the property owners once the abandonment portion was complete. So we didn't simultaneously record a subsequent plat, but we wanted to make sure we transferred ownership of that space because it wasn't an easement, it was an alley in that case.
Gotcha.
So we quitclaim deeded the property to those persons because they didn't own it. And so that affected 6 different quitclaim deeds, but I think in an easement, the difference is they already own the land, correct? Is this an easement or a?
This is another right-of-way alley.
Okay. So in this case, the quitclaim deed would actually transfer the ownership of that property to the property owner. It just wouldn't be on its own separate plat.
I think that's what Ms. Jones is getting at.
Are
then
you
should-
saying they're going to be quitclaim deeds on each one of these?
That can be at the option of the lot owners.
And again, that's going back to their
Yeah.
expense.
Like I said,
Well, I think we did it last time, and
We did.
we paid the cost.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring it.
We paid the cost of the quitclaim deed, no. The developer paid for the cost of the quitclaim deed filings. We only prepared the quitclaim cover sheet. Their engineer prepared the legal descriptions and the legal maps.
Okay. Well, it's $12 to record a quitclaim deed. And how many property owners are there?
That one was 6.
On this one specifically?
20.
Yeah, but I guess in this case, the difference is nothing's being developed and there isn't an engineer that's already
Drawn it out.
calculating every one of those legal descriptions
That's
Right.
true. We'd have to.
for every one of those. So there's an expense
Yeah,
there.
big
for that.
expense for that many surveys.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually researched that possibility as we were studying this, and just to do a center line survey shot was going to be rather expensive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, guess we are still going to go ahead, unless y'all have any other comments, we need to open the public hearing.
But the property owners are already using it like it's theirs property anyway, correct? So I mean, nothing really changes.
No. I'm ready for the public hearing.
Yeah.
We will open the public hearing and ask if anybody would like to come forward to speak regarding this abandonment of alley right-of-way.
Hi. My name is Vicki Lack. I live at 423 Douglas Avenue, and I also own a home at 414 Douglas Avenue. And when I got this, it was a little confusion for me personally, because first off, I didn't really understand exactly what it meant. And I did read the part about Westview Church of Christ, but I was uncertain at that time until just now I'm thinking you're only talking about those 2 lots, but I live on Douglas Avenue, so there's Kings Highway. Westview Church of Christ sits directly across from McFadden Elementary. There is the parking lot of Westview Church. There is another lot that has been back there decades that the church has actually mowed, and there's another lot now that there has been a home that has been torn down that sits on the opposite side of the parking lot. So I'm assuming, or I was assuming, that was the only 2 pieces of property that we were discussing until somebody up here just said that it was roughly 20 properties. To my knowledge, I'm the only one on Douglas Avenue that actually received a notice. My other neighbors didn't, my sister didn't. So I'm really confused exactly what this is.
Do y'all see Douglas Avenue?
Douglas over here.
Douglas is right here, so this is the abandonment.
So you were within, on Douglas, you were within the radius of, they send the notices out to so many people within so many feet of the affected area. So you were within the radius of the affected feet, which not everybody on Douglas would be. So that would explain why you got a notice.
Okay, well, my sister actually lives directly beside 414, and 423 is right there at Short Street. It's on Short Street, and my neighbors who live in front of my sister, they didn't receive one either. So just based on what you're saying, I think they would have received a letter also. And really, I'm not sure how is this going to impact me and my properties.
Not,
Not at all?
Not
Okay,
at
I didn't think it was as I listened, but I wanted to make sure. So you're only talking about the 2 lots that are right there behind the parking lot of Westview Church of Christ, is that correct?
it's all the lots between Kings Highway and Battle Avenue, Villa Street, and Bridge Avenue. So it's more than 2 lots.
Can-
It's a lot of lots.
Can the TV folks put up what they have on our,
But how is that, so you're giving up the abandonment
Oh,
of the
and then
right
the
of
2
way?
more across.
Which
Villa
actually really means what?
It's this little green strip.
Mm-hmm, okay,
Right now, it's recorded as a public right-of-way, an alleyway that's public property. They're looking to abandon this, which means no longer claim ownership of it,
who is they?
the city.
Okay, that's, okay.
So the city would no longer own what's in this highlighted green strip
Everybody
gets land. map.
Okay. And
Okay.
is that going to change the taxes for anyone on that area?
If it's, and Roman, you may be better posed to answer this question than I do.
Theoretically, there would be a tax impact, but considering the square footage of the property,
Minimal?
yeah,
Very
$5 to $10.
Okay. And that's after the raise that's coming in July, the tax raise that they're voting on in Murfreesboro City?
Well, Murfreesboro City did not have a tax increase. We've already voted on that.
Correct.
Oh, they did not pass that?
That's the
Okay.
county.
That's the county.
We have 2 city council members right here. We did not vote for a tax increase.
Very good. All right.
For the record, would appreciate your vote, Ms. Vicki.
Okay, who's next? No?
Nope. Yep.
Oh, here we go.
My name is Sam Parker, property owner for 31111 Villa Street, 311 Villa Street. My questions are, if the property is, right now, all the area that's to be abandoned is something that we've taken care of since the 50s, my family. Why would it, I don't understand why it would be split in half when we've taken care of it all the years, and it's only gonna bring a wedge between the property owners. What the neighbors didn't have, they'll gain. What we had, we'll lose as far as the use of the property. And it's just, and it would also help your fees as far as the division of the property. that you were talking about, going,
Doing
separating
one
to each
versus two.
adjacent owner. So, I just need to know why we have to bring something between the neighbors. It's gonna be a problem between neighbors. When our other neighbors we be gaining and we're losing, and we've maintained it for years. So,
Okay,
I guess that's all I need to say.
okay, and we'll figure out how we're going to address that. Thank
Pardon
you.
me?
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Jennifer Parker. I live at the house at Villa Street. My main thing is I see if you look actually at the property line, our neighbor across the street, if you move the fence over 5 foot and give them 5 foot, they're gonna have to take their garage down, the carport. There's gonna be a lot the neighbors in this area are gonna have to do that have had these houses and built for so long and took care of. They're gonna have to tear this down and remove this and move that and adjust this. So in all reality, as us as property owners, are we gonna have to pay for it, or is someone else gonna have to pay for it?
The bad thing about that is if you built a garage on a property.
Well, it's not our house per se,
Yeah.
it's
But
other houses.
If whoever built a garage on a property that,
On an easement?
on an easement,
They didn't own
they,
that.
they didn't own that to put a garage over it anyway.
Correct.
So it's a terrible situation, but they shouldn't have ever built a garage over top of an easement.
Correct, and as I was told by my father-in-law, when the house was built by his grandfather, he asked the city if he could use the land, or if he could buy the land, and they said, just use it, just use it. So that land has been been included and been taken care of by the family for that long. So I guess that's all I have to say, is it's just gonna cause a lot of inconvenience for a lot of people.
All right, thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Can I speak again?
No, sorry. Okay, we'll close the public hearing. And so, I guess from a legal standpoint, Mr. Hankins and/or Mr. Barbie, if y'all want to address some of the concerns that they've got and maybe give them direction on what they're going to need to do, because there are going to be some issues between the neighbors, and we want to be able to give everybody direction on what they should expect or what can be done.
Yes, Chair Jones. And that actually gets to part of why we decided to study this in the first place, is because this stretch of right-of-way is obviously in a difficult position. As Mr. Wright already mentioned, the fact is, right now, it's public right-of-way. It is a city-owned alley, and without creating judgment for prior city officials, since this alley has been dedicated, it's unfortunate that the level of private use of public property has gotten to this point. But I think as staff and Mr. Barbie can probably also attest to this, again, that was why we felt all the more reason that the city needs to abandon this property, because it's being used as private property, and that creates liability issues for the city. It creates just administrative and practical difficulties. And just to say, as far as what the abandonment does, state law is clear that if you have a right-of-way such as this, that when it was dedicated back before it would have been transferred in fee simple, when it was just transferred as dedicated public right-of-way, that is an easement of sorts, such that we can't just sell it to whoever we want to. our only method to dispose of the property is by abandonment. And state law is clear that when you abandon, it gets cut down the center line and it goes half to each property owner. There's unfortunately very little we can do, other than that. But after the study, we felt that it was important for both the city's interest and the adjacent property owner's interests that the city relinquish its ownership interest in this area.
If we didn't do the abandonment, if the street department, as of today, if the street department decided, hey, we need this right away and we're gonna go build a road on it right now, they could build a road on it tomorrow and everything in that right of way would be tore down.
That's correct.
So I'm sympathetic to people who've been using land, taking care of land and things like that, but a road could be built there today.
In the, just the way things would happen if we were to approve this abandonment, is it possible that you deal with the church portion and get it taken care of so they can move on with their parking lot and trying to get all that done? And I guess you would, well, no, you do a complete abandonment all the way up and down. That wouldn't help. I was trying to think if you could at least get that taken care of for the church and then deal with each individual going out from there as you get legal descriptions, et cetera, but you'd just be abandoned in full. Okay.
That's correct. And again, that was one of the other things that we looked at was, do we try to do something on a piecemeal basis? But again, I think when you look at that stretch as a whole,
Yes.
It would probably create even more administrative headaches to try to do it piecemeal.
Going back to your Commissioner Averwater's question earlier, the one we did last year up closer to Kings Highway, some of this includes some of that same area, correct?
No.
This is southeast of the abandonment area that I think you're referring to.
Yeah, I think that one was actually closer to Kings Highway and Bridge Avenue
It was
on the northwest side.
Oh, I'm a block over. Never mind. I agree.
It's just, that's what it looks like they're saying.
Brad, I think that link is outdated. If you try to hit the maps icon on the website, I think that might work.
There's Bridge and Kings.
I believe that was in this area.
Yeah, that's right.
I believe it was this small section to the north of Bridge Avenue.
Okay. Can you drag down to where the affected area we're talking about with the church, with this satellite view with the property lines, please?
Okay, here, this is the church location.
Mm-hmm.
Good, they're getting more land. I bet it's.
Okay.
Can you zoom back in, please?
Sure.
What a novel idea. It looks like everything's clear. It- From looking at this map, and it's a couple years old, but from looking at the map, there doesn't look to be any structures sitting past the easement line.
There are some
Down on
in this
Villa,
location.
right down below.
I believe that's where the garage is that the gentleman that spoke earlier is referencing. And
Oh, it's crossed over right there.
Yeah.
And it looked like
you
the
see
one
some small areas through here.
across Villa was too.
Kind of see the roof.
Yeah, you can sign it, okay.
And if you go across the street right there too, those couple, oh no, that, yeah, that's just their car.
Yeah.
That was their carport. It's just a car. Looks clear. Just a couple of little places.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's like two wrongs don't make a right. I think there's some unintended negative consequences with this abandonment, but at the same time, I'm not sure what else to do, because at some point, this is going to be, we might as well take care of the issue or the problem or the situation now instead of kicking the can down the road. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the abandonment.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Barbie. And so then both of those are going to go on to city council for, is that what you, yes, recommendation to city council, so y'all will have the opportunity to see them again.
Quick question before they get to us at the council level. Can we, these GIS maps are great, but they're not exact on the line. I know that garage, I mean, it's sitting in the middle of the easement, so that's no question. But the lot northeast of the church, can we actually have somebody go put eyes on that structure and see where it sits in compared to the easement?
We can try.
Okay.
Short of,
Have a survey?
running a survey line.
Yeah, I'm not saying hire a survey and go out there. I just want to, hey, we think it's about 5 foot over the, I mean, if we're splitting the easement in half, how's that affects this structure? Because by looking at this line, if it's split it in half, it should still be on their property. The garage is a totally different situation, but there's a difference in using an easement and building a garage on an easement. So yeah, I would just like to know, I'm not talking about exacts, hey, we're within inches. I'm just talking about, hey, we're pretty close to being clear of that easement.
We can have some additional research ready.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, we're moving on to staff reports and other business. We have 2 items to discuss. We have a mandatory referral to consider proposed underground electric easement to MTE located at 1930 Memorial Boulevard. City of Murfreesboro is the applicant.
I'll take that one.
Thank you, Mr. Hankins, we appreciate it.
Yes, this is for an easement, basically just for electrical line at the airport, where they're doing some additional construction work related to the hangars and actually for the fuel farm. They need power out for the pumps.
Okay.
I'm available for any questions.
An attorney with a brief presentation.
I'll cheers to that.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and second, we have a mandatory referral to consider proposed easement to MTE located at 330 Robert Rose Drive. City of Murfreesboro is the applicant.
Okay, this one is also electric easement. This has to do with construction. I think we've gone over the Robert Rose Gateway Boulevard extension quite extensively, and this is just to clear up some easement area within that project.
Okay. Any questions?
This is just to give an easement to Middle Tennessee Electric to put in some new electricity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
All right. So moved.
So no public hearing on this?
These are not.
Okay, all right.
We have a motion.
Second.
Looking for a second. Thank you so much. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Both of those pass. And if any other staff reports or other business?
No.
Okay. We stand adjourned. Thank you all so much.